a casual hoodie, a luxury showroom, and one jaw-dropping reveal. What happens when a car dealership manager misjudges one of the world's most influential artists? If you're enjoying stories of humility and justice, make sure to subscribe for more incredible true stories. Kanye pulled into the parking lot of Elite Motors, the flagship dealership he had recently acquired in Beverly Hills, California. The coastal sun shimmered off the sleek luxury vehicles parked out front, their glossy finishes practically glowing in the afternoon light. He'd chosen this particular Wednesday for a reason. Midweek meant regular staff, regular operations, nothing staged for weekend crowds. He parked his modest Tesla Model 3 in an unmarked spot at the back and stepped out, adjusting his mask and sunglasses. A small attempt at anonymity in a city that knew his face all too well. The decision to come incognito wasn't just about avoiding paparazzi. It was about something deeper. Despite his billions, his Grammy Awards, his fashion empire, Kanye wanted to see the dealership's true colors, to experience how it operated when no one knew the new owner was watching. His outfit, a simple black YZY hoodie, worn jeans, and slides, was carefully chosen to be unremarkable. He'd seen it too many times before. The way luxury spaces treated people based on appearance, the subtle dismissals, the barely veiled prejudice. As he approached the gleaming glass entrance, he caught his reflection, a far cry from the polished suits and designer where that typically graced these showrooms. Inside, a group of employees huddled near the front desk, their laughter echoing through the space. Through the glass, he could see them sharing something on a phone, probably another viral TikTok. The moment he pushed through the doors, their chatter died down, replaced by meaningful glances and poorly concealed whispers. The air-conditioned showroom hit him first, a stark contrast to the California heat outside. The space smelled of leather and fresh wax, with rows of pristine vehicles gleaming under carefully positioned lights. A Lamborghini Urus, a Rolls-Royce Ghost, a Mercedes Maybach, each car worth more than most people's homes. Yet the employees' eyes weren't on their million-dollar inventory. They were fixed on him, on his casual attire, on the way he moved through their precious space. That's when Margaret appeared. Her stilettos clicked against the polished floor like a metronome counting down to confrontation. Her tailored Chanel suit and perfectly coiffed blonde hair screamed authority, while the tablet she clutched seemed more weapon than tool. The sales director moved with purpose, her expression a masterclass in barely concealed disdain. "Can I help you?" Her voice carried that particular tone, the one reserved for those deemed unworthy of the Elite Motors experience. Before Kanye could respond, she added, "We're by appointment only for serious buyers." She emphasized the word serious, as if it were a barrier he couldn't possibly cross. Kanye smiled beneath his mask, though his eyes remained serious behind the sunglasses. "Just browsing today," he said, his voice calm and measured. "That Maybach caught my eye." Margaret's perfectly penciled eyebrows arched higher. "The Maybach." She let out a small, dismissive laugh. "Perhaps I could direct you to our certified pre-owned section? Or better yet," she paused, tapping her tablet screen with a manicured nail, "there's a wonderful Honda dealership just a few blocks away." Around them, a few employees had stopped pretending to work, openly watching the exchange. One whispered something to another, and a barely suppressed snicker floated across the showroom. Kanye felt the familiar weight of prejudice settling on his shoulders, but his posture remained relaxed, confident. "Actually," he said, moving toward the Maybach, "I'd like to hear more about this one. The S680, right? 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Handcrafted V12 engine." He ran a finger along the car's sleek lines, noting how Margaret flinched at his touch on the pristine finish. Margaret's face tightened, her forced smile becoming a thin line. "Sir," she said, stepping between him and the vehicle, "I don't mean to be rude, but these vehicles start at over $200,000. The monthly payments alone would be—" She trailed off, her implication clear. "Would be what?" Kanye asked quietly, his voice carrying a hint of challenge. The showroom seemed to still, the air thick with tension. From the corner of his eye, he noticed more employees gathering, drawn to the unfolding drama like moths to a flame. "Let's be realistic," Margaret said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Someone in your—" She paused, eyes flicking over his hoodie and slides. "Situation might be more comfortable somewhere else. We wouldn't want to waste anyone's time." Kanye removed his sunglasses slowly, folding them carefully into his pocket. His eyes met Margaret's directly now, unwavering. "And what situation would that be exactly?" Margaret shifted uncomfortably, but her prejudice outweighed her prudence. "Look," she said, lowering her voice to what she probably thought was a considerate whisper. "This is Beverly Hills. Elite Motors caters to a certain caliber of client. The paperwork alone requires proof of substantial income, stellar credit, and—" She gestured vaguely at his attire. "A certain professional standing." A young sales associate nearby coughed awkwardly, perhaps sensing the dangerous territory his superior was wandering into. But Margaret was on a roll now, her words flowing with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences for their assumptions. "We've had issues before with people coming in just to take photos with the cars for social media," she continued. "This isn't an Instagram playground. Our clients expect a certain atmosphere, you understand?" Kanye's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened slightly. "So what you're saying is, I don't belong here?" The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Margaret's smile turned patronizing. "I'm simply suggesting that there might be other establishments better suited to your budget. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual clients to attend to." She turned to walk away, her heels clicking against the floor with smug finality. But Kanye wasn't finished. "Before you go," he called after her, reaching for his phone, "I'd like to speak with Richard Thompson." Margaret froze mid-step, turning slowly. "Mr. Thompson? The regional director." Her laugh was sharp, dismissive. "Mr. Thompson doesn't take unscheduled meetings, especially not with—" "Call him," Kanye interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. "Tell him Yi is here." Margaret's laugh faltered slightly. "Yi? I don't know what game you're playing, but Mr. Thompson doesn't have time for dash." "Call him?" Kanye repeated, pulling his mask down just enough to reveal the bottom half of his face. "Or I will." Something in his tone made Margaret hesitate. She glanced at her tablet, then back at him, uncertainty creeping into her expression. The watching employees had grown silent, the tension in the room thick enough to cut. I'll need to verify dash," she began, but Kanye was already dialing on his phone. He held up one finger in a wait gesture as he lifted the phone to his ear. "Richard? Yeah, it's Yi. I'm at Elite Motors. Yes, right now." He paused, listening. "No, everything's fine. Just having an interesting conversation about client caliber with your sales director." Another pause. "Margaret, I believe?" The color drained from Margaret's face as she watched him speak. Around them, whispers erupted among the staff. One employee was frantically typing on his phone, probably Googling recent news about the dealership's ownership. "5 minutes? Perfect. Thanks." Kanye ended the call and slipped his phone back into his pocket. The silence in the showroom was deafening. Margaret's tablet slipped slightly in her grasp. I don't understand. You're saying you're Kanye West," he finished for her, removing his sunglasses completely now. "Or Yi if you prefer. And as of last month, the owner of Elite Motors. Among other things." The tablet finally slipped from Margaret's hands entirely, clattering to the floor. The sound echoed through the showroom like a gunshot. An employee rushed forward to retrieve it, but froze halfway, unsure whether to approach. But that's impossible," Margaret stammered. "We weren't told. I mean, the memo said the new owner was a private investor." "Sometimes," Kanye said, his voice carrying across the now silent showroom, "it's worth seeing how people treat you when they don't know who you are. Really shows you who they are, doesn't it?" The next few minutes passed in excruciating silence. Margaret stood rooted to her spot, her usual confidence shattered. The other employees had gathered in small clusters, whispering among themselves, occasionally shooting glances at Kanye, their expressions a mix of awe and mortification. Kanye moved casually through the showroom, examining the vehicles with genuine interest. He stopped at a sleek black Rolls-Royce, running his hand along its contours. "Beautiful machine," he commented to no one in particular. "The Ghost series too, right? The way they've refined the suspension system is incredible." If you're enjoying this story of humility and justice, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stories like these remind us that appearances can be deceiving, and karma has perfect timing. The sound of the main doors swinging open cut through the tension. Richard Thompson burst in, slightly out of breath, his usual impeccable appearance somewhat disheveled from rushing over. He was a tall man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and an expensive suit that spoke of years in the luxury car business. "Mr. West," Richard called out, striding forward with an extended hand. "I had no idea you were planning to visit today. I would have been here to welcome you properly." Kanye shook his hand firmly. "That would have defeated the purpose, Richard. Sometimes you need to see things as they really are." Richard's smile faltered as he glanced around the showroom, taking in the tense atmosphere and his employees' uncomfortable expressions. His eyes landed on Margaret, who looked like she might faint at any moment. "I take it your welcome wasn't quite what we strive for at Elite Motors?" Richard asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Let's just say," Kanye replied, his voice carrying across the showroom, "that according to your sales director, I'm not quite the caliber of client Elite Motors caters to. Apparently, my hoodie and slides don't meet the dress code." Richard's face darkened. "Margaret," he said sharply, "my office. Now." But Kanye held up a hand. "Actually, I'd prefer to handle this here, in front of everyone." He turned to address the entire showroom. "What happened today isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever walked through those doors and been judged based on their appearance." Margaret found her voice, though it trembled. "Mr. West, I cannot begin to apologize enough. If I had known That's exactly the problem," Kanye interrupted, his voice firm but controlled. "You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with respect. The size of someone's bank account or the number of Grammy Awards they've won shouldn't determine their worth as a human being." He paused, looking around the showroom at each face turned toward him. I didn't buy this dealership just as a business investment. I bought it because I believe luxury shouldn't be exclusive. It shouldn't be about keeping people out, it should be about welcoming people in." The silence in the room was absolute. Even the soft hum of the air conditioning seemed muted. "When I walked in here today," Kanye continued, pacing slowly between the gleaming vehicles, "I heard the whispers. I saw the looks. I felt the judgment. And I'm Kanye West. I'm worth billions. I've changed the face of music and fashion. But none of that should matter." He stopped in front of a young sales associate who had been watching with wide eyes. "Tell me something. If a 19-year-old kid walks in here tomorrow, wearing streetwear, but has a tech startup that just got funded for millions, would you treat them like Margaret treated me?" The associate swallowed hard and shook his head. "Or what about a professional athlete in sweats and a hoodie? A music producer who doesn't wear suits? A successful entrepreneur who prefers sneakers to Oxford shoes?" Kanye's voice carried throughout the space. "Success doesn't wear a uniform anymore. Innovation doesn't have a dress code." Richard Thompson nodded solemnly, while Margaret seemed to shrink further into herself. "Let me tell you a story," Kanye said, his tone shifting. "When I was starting out, before the fame, before the money, I walked into a luxury store in Chicago. The security guard followed me around like I was going to steal something. The salespeople ignored me. They had no idea who I was or who I would become." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "But here's the thing, they shouldn't have needed to know. Every person who walks through those doors deserves respect. Every single one." Turning to Margaret, he continued, "You offered to direct me to a Honda dealership. Nothing wrong with Honda, they make great cars. But you didn't make that suggestion because you thought it was the best fit for my needs. You made it because you looked at me and decided I didn't belong here. You know what's ironic? Kanye continued, his voice carrying a hint of amusement now. The Maybach I was looking at? I already own 3. The Rolls-Royce Ghost? I have 2. But today I wasn't here as a buyer. I was here as an owner who wanted to understand his business from the ground up. If you're moved by this story of transformation and justice, take a moment to subscribe. These moments of truth have the power to change lives. Several employees shifted uncomfortably, some looking at their shoes, others stealing glances at Margaret, who stood rigid with shame. Richard Thompson maintained his professional composure, but his jaw was tight with controlled anger. Starting tomorrow, Kanye announced, we're implementing changes. First, mandatory sensitivity and inclusivity training for every employee. And I mean every employee. His gaze swept the room. From the janitor to the CEO. He walked over to the Maybach he'd been examining earlier. Second, we're going to redefine what luxury means at Elite Motors. It's not just about the cars we sell, it's about the experience we create. And that experience should be the same whether someone walks in wearing Gucci or Gap. Third, he continued, his voice growing more passionate. We're starting a mentorship program. I want to connect with young entrepreneurs, especially from underserved communities. Show them that spaces like this belong to them too, that their dreams are valid, regardless of how they dress or where they come from. Margaret finally found her voice, though it quivered. Mr. West, please, I have children to support. This job. Kanye held up his hand. I'm not here to fire anyone, Margaret. That's not my style. I'm here to educate, to transform. This is your opportunity to grow, to be part of something bigger than just selling luxury cars. He turned to address the entire staff again. Look around this room. These cars? They're not just status symbols. They're dreams, aspirations. For some people, walking into this showroom is their first step toward a goal they've been working towards their whole life. And who are we to judge whether they deserve to take that step? The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the showroom windows as Kanye continued, his presence commanding the space in a way no luxury vehicle could match. Every single person in this room has experienced judgment at some point in their lives, he said, his voice softening. We've all been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. So why perpetuate that cycle? One of the younger sales associates raised his hand tentatively. Mr. West? I think I've been guilty of this too. Sometimes we joke about the window shoppers and dreamers who come in. The dreamers, Kanye interrupted, a smile playing at his lips. You know what I was before I was a billionaire? A dreamer. Before the albums, before YZY, before any of this. I was just a kid with big dreams who people underestimated. He gestured around the showroom. This place? It's not just a dealership. From now on, it's going to be a testament to what's possible when you give people a chance. When you look past the surface and see the potential. Richard Thompson stepped forward. Mr. West, I want you to know that I take full responsibility for the culture that's developed here. As regional director, I should have Richard, Kanye cut in. Taking responsibility is good, but taking action is better. I want you to lead these changes. Starting with how we train our staff, how we approach customer service, how we define luxury. Margaret, who had been silent for some time, suddenly spoke up. I've been in this business for 20 years, she said, her voice steady now. And I realize I've been part of the problem. The assumptions, the prejudice. It becomes so normalized you don't even see it anymore. That's the first step, Kanye nodded, acknowledging Margaret's admission. Recognizing the problem. Now let's be part of the solution. He turned to face the entire staff again, removing his mask completely now. Starting next week, we're going to do something different. Every employee is going to spend one day experiencing what I experienced today. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. You'll visit other luxury establishments, not as employees, but as customers. Dressed casually, no status symbols. Experience firsthand what it feels like to be judged, to be dismissed. Because sometimes, you need to walk in someone else's shoes to understand their journey. If the story resonates with you, Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful narratives of transformation and justice. But here's what makes Elite Motors different from today forward, he continued, his voice rising with passion. Every quarter, we're hosting Dream Days. We're inviting young entrepreneurs, especially from underserved communities, to come here, not just to look at cars, but to connect with successful business leaders, to learn about financial literacy, to understand that luxury isn't just for a select few. It's for anyone willing to work for their dreams. Richard Thompson was rapidly taking notes on his tablet, his expression showing a mix of admiration and determination. And Margaret, Kanye turned to her. I want you to lead these initiatives. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with surprise. Me? But after how I treated you. Exactly, Kanye smiled. Who better to teach others about transformation than someone who's experienced it themselves? Your story, your change. That's going to be powerful. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow across the showroom, making the luxury vehicles shimmer like precious jewels. Starting tomorrow, Kanye announced, Elite Motors isn't just selling cars. We're selling possibilities. We're selling dreams. And everyone deserves the right to dream. If these words touch your heart, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more stories that challenge our perspectives and change lives. I want quarterly reports, he continued, pacing between the vehicles. Not just on sales, but on customer experience. Every person who walks through those doors gets a survey, not about what they bought, but about how they were treated. Those numbers matter more than any sales figures. He stopped at the Maybach he'd been interested in earlier. And here's something else we're going to do. Every month, we're hosting Future Leaders events. We're bringing in successful people from all walks of life, musicians, athletes, tech entrepreneurs, artists, people who break the mold of what success looks like. They'll share their stories, mentor others, show that the path to success isn't about fitting into someone else's box. Margaret stepped forward. Her earlier shame transformed into determination. Mr. West, I'd like to volunteer to share my story too, about how I learned this lesson, about how my prejudices almost cost me everything. Kanye nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of leadership we need. Your honesty, your willingness to change. That's more valuable than any sales technique. Richard Thompson cleared his throat. We should document this transformation. Show other dealerships, other luxury businesses, that there's a better way. Already ahead of you, Kanye smiled. We're going to create a training program, the Elite Standard. But it won't be about how to sell the most expensive car or close the biggest deal. It'll be about how to see the person, not the appearance. How to nurture dreams, not judge them. The showroom had grown quiet again, but this time the silence was different, filled with reflection and possibility rather than judgment and tension. One last thing, Kanye said, walking towards the main entrance. Everyone in this room has a choice to make. You can either be part of this change, or you can find somewhere else that aligns with your values. But know this, the old way of doing things, that ends today. He turned back to face the staff one final time. Elite Motors isn't just going to sell luxury cars. We're going to redefine what luxury means. It's not about exclusion, it's about elevation. Not about keeping people out, but lifting people up. The sun had nearly set now, casting long shadows across the showroom floor. Through the windows, the city lights of Beverly Hills were beginning to twinkle, a reminder of all the dreams still waiting to be realized. Tomorrow, Kanye said, pulling his mask back on, we start fresh. Every person who walks through those doors is a potential dream maker, a future success story. Remember that. As he walked out into the evening air, he could feel the energy in the dealership had shifted. Something had changed not just in Elite Motors, but in the hearts and minds of everyone present. Richard Thompson followed him out. Mr. West, he called, thank you for showing us a better way. Kanye turned, smiled beneath his mask, and said simply, don't thank me, show me. Show everyone who walks through those doors. And that's how one afternoon changed not just a luxury car dealership, but started a movement that would transform an entire industry. because sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments of truth. If the story touched your heart and opened your mind, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We bring you powerful stories of transformation, justice, and change every week. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, success doesn't wear a uniform, and dreams don't have a dress code. This has been another true story of karma and justice. Until next time, stay humble, stay human, and never judge a book by its cover or a billionaire by his hoodie.